All right, what's up, y'all? My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Today's the 21st of June, 2025. This video is titled Workouts Don't Help the Nose. And I'll get into it. A little bit of context. I made a video titled Workouts Don't Help the Jaw. And this is the same approach to the discussion and to the information, okay? So, I'll do a little rundown as I do, what we are, each of the four sides of In the Image Clothing Company. I'll talk about where clothing sits to do our key phrase, right? Allow the human body to work. And then we will get into the discussion on the nose and how inhibited it is and why that affects the whole body, to the tip of the toes, to the tips of the fingers, and how it truly is coming from clothing. As I say, clothing is the only fix. I'll talk about our main side here, okay? The main side of In the Image Clothing Company, one of our fourths, we address the human body's natural function. We talk about the anatomy in depth. We come at it through clothing, but the body's about the skeletal system. It's about a neutral position in every joint, okay? The whole body just has its neutrals, and it has to reside in them to just work. As I say, the human body is just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space, Earth, right? And the human being, gravity, okay? There's a center line that has to remain. The sternum, the spine, well, that's not the spine. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose for this video, and our jaw. The jaw naturally stabilizes the entire body, so it's huge. We talk about it very, very often when it comes to just allowing the human body to work, okay? So clothing has to stay centered. It has to fit correct, where I'll discuss in a minute, and ideally be made from 100% natural materials because our bodies are. We are only what we've eaten, right? In scripture, it says man was pulled from the clay and he will one day return to it, okay? We're just what we eat, and so if we eat anything unnatural, it just doesn't do anything for us besides have to go through our bodies. And so natural materials is very important to actually not only just where clothing sits and having it be correct and centered and balanced weight-wise as well, right? But stretch in clothing goes the opposite direction of the only way that muscles could ever work. There's a video, there's a dog. Oh shoot, I don't know what kind of dog that is, but I'll get into explaining why I say it like that when I talk about one of our other fourths to our company. But yeah, muscles only contract is a video we have, and it's the case, right? They only shorten, like the bicep right here will shorten to bring the arm closed, and then on the opposite side, opposing muscles, right, which is another video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, our triceps will then contract to extend the arm, okay? So muscles only contract, so we can't have stretch in our clothing. We really can't stretch the human being and benefit from it just about ever, because muscles need to work. The body can only ever work activated as a whole. Anywhere any of it goes, all of it comes, and it all has to play its role because that's why every part of the body's there, okay? So, yeah, there you go. Eating, standing, walking, sitting, sleeping, hydration, breathing, all the things that we do as a human being, we discuss them. Because it's not just about clothing. We show free modifications, and we will have good clothing available under InTheImageClothingCompany.com. But really what we are is just about allowing the body to work, and we do it through all the ways that we do anything physically as a human being. We talk about a lot of things, okay? So another fourth of us is In the Image Clothing Company Music, and we show me, I guess, as of today's date, the sizing and setup of guitars to not alter the body, because our hands are essentially our shoulders, as our feet are essentially our hips. The body, as I'm saying, only can ever work as one. Everything has its role, and everything actually affects everything else if it's not doing its only job, okay? So I also place music that I've made on In the Image Clothing Company Music. We have In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, okay? We have 135 episodes of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast as of yesterday. And there we have deep discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things. As I say, we're all just human beings placed on the same earth. We have the same God, and we just discuss it there as it is, okay? To the best of my ability as a sinful by nature human being, right? And then we have In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, the last fourth to mention here. we do a lot to let dogs stay natural, okay? Similar to the human body, dogs are just a body of flesh and bone on the earth. So collars, leashes, harnesses need to stay centered and be balanced on the dog and not like be twisting the dog, pulling on the dog. We talk about those things. We talk about eating for dogs naturally, how to keep your dog hydrated. We really do a lot, as well as breeding purebred standard poodles, because that's what we specialize in, is that size and breed of dog. But we will have poodle parade events here in the state of Utah. It's so beautiful. We have all sorts of things, mountains, desert. Well, the whole state's a desert, but then we have winter, snow, okay? We have lakes and wetlands, marshes, slot canyons, slick rock. We have a lot of stuff here, forests, and wow. Utah's a very, very biologically diverse place, more so than most anywhere on the earth, actually. Like, seriously. Oh my goodness, the camera is moving. So poodle parade events, we'll get together, hang out, right, and discuss letting dogs stay natural. Bring your purebred poodles of any size or poodle mixes of any size, and those are the only dog breeds allowed. It's in the name, right? Poodle parade events. And we'll do ones called Clean the Creek events, where we'll clean up trash out of rivers and water places here in Utah, right? So check scheduling and can and can't as far as what you bring to poodle parade events under InTheImageClothingCompany.com, and dog products that work for every dog will be also placed on InTheImageClothingCompany.com, okay? So there you go. Now, where clothing sits is the same for everybody, because the body just can't be restricted. If you're a man or a woman, tall or short, skinny or fat, any age or from any part of the earth, any time period to ever be, you're a human being. You're the same as me and him and her, okay? Pants have to be entirely above the hips, just so there's no restriction to the hips. There's so much motion and functionality in our hip socket, okay? And then slightly higher in the front than the rear for the waistband angle, because as I'm sitting now, the pelvis neutrally sits posteriorly tucked, and then our core muscles can just always work. That's the only reason they're there, is to be constantly activated. The body just always works, otherwise it doesn't. And then compensation is trying to happen, and it just can't, because it's all there. If you try to compensate for one part of your body, the other part is being inhibited as well, okay? So tops that we wear have seams on top of our shoulders. They need to sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders, because our shoulders only ever work behind our head. That's just where they insert and connect and operate mechanically. And then right at the edges of our shoulders, ideally, is where the edge seams of our tops are, just because that's where the functionality of the joint is, and otherwise it just can't function, okay? Two things we have as prerequisites under In The Image Clothing Company. Firstly, shoelacing. What we label as In The Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique is the only way to weave a rope across the top of the human foot without altering all the mechanics in there, okay? It looks just like this, but check out In The Image Clothing Company's official shoelacing technique. These are actually the Denver Canvas Black by Xero shoes, Xero. No affiliation with them as of today's date or up until, but they're great, right? I shout out Xero shoes all the time, and I have since the founding of In The Image Clothing Company. But then we tie our shoes evenly, right? There's just two sides to the human being. There's a center line, so we have to tie both feet over toward the center line of the human being. Okay, otherwise you have potential rotation issues to the tip of your head and the tips of your fingers from just knots on your feet. And then, secondly, we remove all tags. Included within shoes, anywhere a tag is placed in clothing, it's just either causing a physical gap, changing the body's only working position, and or just not allowing musculature to activate. And then, like I was saying, with the compensation that tries to happen but the body can't, damage, okay? So we show how to get out of chronic patterning and scar tissue. That's really what we do, other than showing how clothing needs to sit, because the body develops these patternings, right? And working out of these imbalanced, incorrect positions for so many years, we have to get the body centered, okay? So rotation-wise is the big thing. Internal versus external rotation at both the hand that travels to the shoulder and then the foot that travels to the hip, okay? So let's get into the nose. Workouts don't help the nose, and you'll understand more of why I titled it like that as we go on. Unless you've heard the one on workouts don't help the jaw, then you get it. But our body's about its center line. And as I say, there's no way to train the human being. It's just a machine. The hand can only ever track in line. Otherwise, it just doesn't work, right? The pelvis has to sit neutral. Otherwise, the whole body is damaged, okay? So, those are just two examples, but the whole body has neutrals, right? Neutral, natural, and normal synonyms within the human being, okay? So, yeah, we have to keep our body in its neutrals. We have to keep our body in its center line on Earth's gravity. Shoot, this sun's beaming down. It's probably like 80-something degrees Fahrenheit right on this device that I'm filming this with. If it cuts randomly, sometimes this thing has overheated in the past and just turned off. So I'm literally praying that doesn't happen, unless it's supposed to for whatever reason, because I don't want to have this cut part of the way through. This is a really big video and we're already in it. So the nose is in the center, okay? It's one of the things that I discuss and describe as being the center line of the human being on Earth's gravity. And there's two nostrils. Not only is it in the middle, like our mouth is in the middle, or our jaw, but those are just like one thing. But the nose has two nostrils. I made a video under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company here one time titled How Blowing the Nose Affects Body Mechanics, okay? And it does, because there's two sides to the nose, right? Two holes that allow air to come into the lungs from the nostrils, which are the two holes, okay? In between there's what's called a septum, which is this piece in the middle of the nose. Really the actual center of the nose is the septum. And it divides the two nostrils, okay? You look from underneath the nose, you see this piece that goes in the middle. Well, it travels up to the top of the nose here between the eyes as well. It's called the septum, and it has to stay in the center. If you've ever heard the term a deviated septum, the word deviated or deviation just means to like stray off from something. Talk about the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's what we do under In The Image Clothing Company podcast. Well, a deviated septum is something that so many people have, and it's when the center of the nose is just off-centered. And it's almost always to the right, because of the video's information under In The Image Clothing Company's main site here titled The Right-Handed World. We live in one. Products that are made to be used with one hand over the other, or the majority of the use being with one hand, is designed to be used for the right hand, because as of today at least, 85% give or take of the whole earth are right-handed, and clothing patterns themselves are essentially right-handed, okay? And then we're tying knots, shoes, okay, to the right if you're doing it unevenly rather than over toward the center line on both feet, okay, like I was until I was 24 years old. That's a big thing of what's caused the patterning in my body that I've had to rid the scar tissue of in my nose, right, for the sake of this. Yes, I mean, I had a deviated septum, and if you can see what I say as the gift of video, right, videos under In The Image Clothing Company content, right at the very founding, you'll just look at my face and be able to tell, yeah, my nose is centered now and it wasn't then. Even my smile and my eyes, everything was just very much to the right. Okay, we live in a right-handed world. Drawstrings tied, a right-handed knot will just put your pelvis forward and to the left like this, and then you'll be externally rotated on the right side, okay? The slipped lap knot is what I show under In The Image Clothing Company as the founder to use for our drawstring knots. Look up how drawstrings affect body mechanics under In The Image Clothing Company, our main site, okay? And I show it. But always tie the loop, like the looped end toward the center. Everything comes to the center of the human being, okay? Because there is one on Earth's gravity. No opinion, no belief, no yoga class, right? I used to word it like that often. So the septum gets deviated, meaning gets just imbalanced to the right. And now every breath you take, which is really what constitutes human life, there's an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast titled Oxygen, and breath is the one thing that we have to have over everything else, meaning before everything else, because biblically, God breathed life into the first man, Adam, but also just something that we can understand out of our own tangible fleshly now. Breath is the thing that you can go the least time without, okay? Go without breath for the least time, and then water, and then food, and right? You've only got about 3 minutes is the point without breathing, and you just no longer are alive, okay? Yeah, I gave somebody CPR one time, man. That was a whole thing. It had been about 3 minutes at least, actually. It's, you know, it's a give or take for how long you have, but it's right around 3 minutes, and yeah, I had to give her like mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and you know, and pump her chest with the compressions. Yeah, man, we have to breathe, and we have to breathe centered, because there's 2 nostrils and there's 2 lungs, okay? Our rib cage here connects in the front to the thing in the center, the sternum, okay? The ribs come around and connect to the sternum. I've had my sternum cut in half twice, okay? 2 full open heart surgeries. But both sides of the ribs come here and connect to the sternum, okay? And then in the spine, or on the spine, in the rear, the ribs come around and they connect to the spine, just behind the sternum, okay? And the sternum's in front of the spine. So our rib cage expands and contracts in 360 degrees, ideally, just meaning all the way around, fully expanding and fully contracting every breath. But through the nose, it would be, okay. Ideally, we breathe through the nose. That's what it's there for. You can breathe through the mouth, but the nose has filtration with the nose hairs in there. And also our jaw, naturally stabilizing our body, needs our tongue to naturally sit against the roof of our mouth like that, and our body gets stabilized. The body will do it by itself if it's allowed to be centered, but it starts at the feet and the hands, right, and tip of the head, and then it travels to the jaw. But the nose, if it's imbalanced, your lungs will be as well. If your nose is off to the right, you're going to just be breathing different amounts of air through your nostrils, okay, on either side of the septum, in the center. Check out that alliteration, brother. And we need to keep our rib cage evenly expanding and contracting. There's a video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company here titled How Clothing Affects the Rib Cage. A big thing I talked about was side seams in clothing that's actually against our bodies. Ideally, the tops that we wear actually against our bodies don't have side seams, right? That can really affect the rib cage. And what can happen is the rib cage from side seams can really affect the nose. If your ribs are trying to avoid pressing into an uncomfortable seam or a tag placed often here on the left side of a side seam in a top, then our nose will be breathing imbalanced coming from our sides, right? The body's only one, okay? It can only ever work activated as a whole. That's why I say I have a problem with specialists. You can never address, like your shoulder, for example. If your hand's altered, you just never will get your shoulder to be neutral if your hand can't be, right? The neutral wrist straight out from that pinky finger. So you have to look at the body as an entirety, starting at the feet and the, well, hands, yes, but meaning just starting at the extremities and working to the other extremity, if you will. The whole body, you have to look at all of it, otherwise you're actually wasting your time, truly, because you'll just stay within the patternings if there's things built up in places that are causing the patternings to continue, but you're addressing something that's not that location, but it's just being affected from where the scar tissue actually is, you know, where the, yeah, problem actually is not normally where the pain is in the body. So yeah, we really know how to get down to allowing the body to work under In The Image Clothing Company. And me as the founder, like I said it in here, the gift of video, you're able to see, I mean, my body works. A lot of these specialists out here that, you know, and I'm not trying to talk down on them, but it's the whole thing about if you don't know, you don't know. You just can't be held accountable for what you don't know. But a lot of people will tell you and teach you and show you things they've read in books or went to school for or whatever, and it just doesn't work. And all we need to do is let the body work. That's the goal that we're getting to, is just functioning, right? Moving across the earth. And so what we show actually is the real fixes. As I say, clothing is the only fix for human beings' physical problems because it's the only thing physically placed onto us. And no matter what else you try to do to address your body's function, you're still, first of all, doing those things within clothing. And then once you're done with those things, like chiropractic visits or physical therapy, you know, workouts, personal training, then I'm just waiting to see if it'll fall, the camera. The wind's pushing it. But anyway, then you go back into the clothing you were wearing that's imbalanced, and then your body just is damaged again, okay? So anyway, people just don't know what they don't know though, right? And so that's why In The Image Clothing Company is huge, as I say. But we have to keep the nose centered. Now, if you have a deviated septum, it's actually from your clothing, okay? Unless you've had an injury to your nose, your body would just work centered if there was nothing altering it. If you're just walking on the earth and standing and sitting and sleeping, your body would have to just naturally stay centered because Earth's gravity is pulling on it. But if you have clothing placed on you that's imbalancing your body, well, then your breathing is going to be imbalanced, okay? Because whatever's in the center just won't be if clothing's pulling you out of your center, okay? So, keeping short sleeves short, a video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company here. Our short sleeves need to be short enough to where we can fully bend our elbows, okay? Internal rotation at the forearm is a video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, and that happens when the arm really, really bends, okay? Otherwise, we won't have full rotations in our forearms, and then now, like I said, the hand is essentially the shoulder, and then the nose is imbalanced from that, okay? How sleeve cuffs affect body mechanics, keeping things off the wrists, okay, is something that must happen. The point is, that's a video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, how sleeve cuffs affect body mechanics. Tying shoes evenly will travel straight to your nostrils, okay? It will, because if your whole body's being pulled off to one side, even your face muscles, like squinting outside, right? There's a video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company titled The Human Head. I was actually sitting in this location when I made that video. I went over all the musculature that's between the physical skull and our skin on it, which is our scalp. And we need to be able to have all the natural motion in there that just would be there. And everything's going to be just off to the right if your whole body's being rotated externally on the right side from clothing, especially knots in clothing, drawstrings and shoelaces, right? So, yeah, the dreaded collar seam, okay? Under In The Image Clothing Company's main side here, look up In The Image Clothing Company's dreaded collar seam modification. This shirt actually has a seam in the collar, which is what we call the dreaded collar seam, okay? But the collars have to stay centered, which is a video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company here, keeping collars centered, and our modification actually allows it to happen, okay? I purchased this shirt yesterday, and I wouldn't have with a seam in the collar if In The Image Clothing Company's dreaded collar seam modification didn't work, right? Because otherwise, you know, then my collar wouldn't be centered, and as the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, I do all that I can to have everything I ever wear be very intentional to be used as the visual example, right? And just for my life to work, because there's only one way the human body ever could work, right? So, yeah, there you go, right? I mean, I really use myself as the example, and I preach what I have practiced, like the episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, right? I do it on the back end. I do it first, and then I talk about it. So, yeah. Now, anything in clothing that's causing the body to be any farther to, it's almost always going to be the right if it is one side, right? So oversized clothing, just pulling your muscles farther away from the even contraction at the inserts, okay, insertions. Muscles in the front, like these pectorals, they connect to the sternum and then out to the shoulder. Okay, to the sternum and out to the shoulder, on the other side as well. Muscles in the rear, the upper, mid, lower trapezius muscles, and the rhomboids, the latissimus dorsi, all these muscles in the back, okay, they connect from the spine to the shoulder. And then on the other side, from the spine to the shoulder. So there's a video that I made in this same location as well, titled, "Tops are like a cage for the shoulders," under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company here. And I showed that, okay? We need to have everything be centered at the shoulders, seam-wise, and collars, okay? Keeping collars centered, like I said, another video of ours under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. And then we have even contraction of muscles, and then our nose can just breathe evenly straight down our center, right? Because if you're breathing, your rib cage just needs to expand. And if you have a gap that's greater on one side than the other from where your arms will just lay down with gravity, like in the Image Clothing Company podcast episode titled Mind the Gap, I went over a lot of things relating to the gospel of Jesus Christ. But physically, I talked about like the seams in our clothing here, down the arms, right on the inside of the sleeve, and down the side seams. And then, yeah, anywhere tags placed, it's one of our 2 prerequisites under In The Image Clothing Company, just to always remove tags anyway. But any physical gap that's being caused, anywhere that your rib cage isn't going to be able to expand normally, it's going to go straight to your nose, and then you'll just develop a deviated septum, okay? Meaning your nose will just be off-centered, and then it travels from your nose now to, like I said, the tips of your toes, the tips of your fingers, tip of your head, just all the extremities of the body. So a big thing is all of this. It's just what we always talk about. It's just clothing is the only fix, right? It just is what it is. And the point being, the nose has to stay centered. Here's the thing. We have a lot of systems of the body that just do what they do and only what they do. One of our 5 senses is the sense of sight. And if we're staying centered physically, but then let's say our eyes are closed, okay? Okay, now here you are. Now let's say you open your eyes. When you're looking, your sense of sight, your eyes see the sides of your nose slightly. And especially if you're looking one way or the other. There's a video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company here titled The Need to Look Left. There's also one titled The Need to Turn Right. Okay? Because turning right and looking left are mechanically the same thing. Okay? Rotation-wise, you're rotating kind of to the left while you're turning right. Internal on the right side and external on the left side, essentially, just meaning that's, what's happening as you're rotating your whole body. And your head has to look left, okay, just to allow that to happen. And if you have a deviated septum, meaning if your nose is imbalanced to the right, you're not going to be able to look visually with your eyes to the left, because your eyeballs, your visual system, will just see more nose from the right eye when you're looking left than it will from your left eye when you're looking right. And then you're going through life always slightly looking right, just to avoid the excess material on your nose. When I say material, I just mean that scar tissue or that septum actually moved to the right, right? Choose the right. A video, which is actually an In The Image Clothing Company podcast episode, and I talk about all the times that I do, the right side of the body is just about the only side you need to address anything with, because it's just the side that's inhibited. And there's just 2 sides to the body and the right-handed world, right? So, yeah, okay? Like the right pelvis crest, the right collarbone, keeping hands the same size, dorsiflexion of the right foot. These are all videos under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, and I discuss the imbalances, okay? So, yeah, the right elbow, it's another video. Breaking up the scar tissue along the right forearm, that's so much more bound up than on the left, right? From all the things that we use that for, resting our right forearm on things. And yeah, the right shin bone. the point is, with all this scar tissue on the right side and all the inability to internally rotate the right side, meaning get the whole right side closer to the center line than it has been, okay, the point is evenly, okay, left to right. Well, clothing, right? I mean, that's what's causing it. And then the point with the nose is it just has to breathe centered. And so we really need to, you know, be able to break up the scar tissue on our nose, be able to get our nose centered again if it's been just put into patterning for so many years. And our septum needs to be in the center. Our nostrils need to be even openings for the air to just come in and out when we breathe. Again, traveling then through the whole body. And there you go, okay? So the point with workouts don't help the nose is this. I say so often, as I said earlier, we can't train the human being. Well, we don't need to work out. The body needs to always be activated. And it would just do that if everything's in its neutral position to work. Then it just works, right? You take your wrists out of their only neutral and you can't rotate your forearms. My elbow popped over here, if you heard that. You put your wrists in their only neutral and you just have rotations and your body just works. And that's how the whole thing is. There's only a neutral because everything just has an insertion of muscles, and they just track in line. They have to. They can't do anything else. So it's just a machine. Just a machine, the human body. Now, what happens is that's the whole point. So people will do workouts, that's where I was. And they'll be doing workouts within oversized clothing, or within, you know, tops with a dreaded collar seam, or with shoes tied unevenly, drawstrings tied unevenly, or, you know, just things like the sleeve cuffs on their forearms, well, the short sleeve cuffs, and then their body's just damaged, right? Or sleeves on their wrists, and then that neutral wrist isn't allowed to be there, okay? Pant cuffs on the feet, right? And then the stitch that's imbalanced around the center of the crotch of pants just puts the right side lower, and then zippers interlock and do that as well. You can look up how zippers affect body mechanics under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company and see our zipper modification, okay? And you can look up, how pant cuffs affect body mechanics, and keeping pants higher in the front. That's another video that we have. We have a lot of things because, right? I'm making this all how it needs to be to give the context, so that going forth, I won't ever have to explain myself like out of my own mouth again, right? It's like, no, I made a video on this, you can go reference, right? So that I don't have to like try to prove down the road that what we're doing is valid, I guess, right? It's like, I made all this stuff, you know, near the founding dates. Like, that's why I did that. That's what this video is here, okay, on the nose and how workouts can't help it. Because you're working out your body in an imbalance, and your nose is breathing imbalanced as well. So, yeah, right? Let's say you're doing all you can to work out your body and do mobility routines. You're putting like hard little balls, like lacrosse balls in places, and massaging your body. Well, that's all great and fine, and maybe you get it pretty well close to released to centered, and then you go to sleep, and now through the whole night your nose is imbalanced and you're breathing in a way that's causing a patterning back into what you just tried to release in your workouts or your mobility routines, or, you know, in the gym. So, yeah, clothing is the only fix. It's not about us. It's not like I say that because we have a company about clothing. It's we have a company about clothing because it's the only fix. Because God designed the body to work. Okay, Designed to Work is an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast title. And so, if we don't restrict it from anything physically placed on it, it'll work. Unless you've got your own things, but then you've already got your own things that you know about. Amputations, deformities, right? That's fine. You're your own person. But as far as external man-made things, yeah, I mean, the body's just going to do what it's going to do well, because God designed it to work, unless we alter it with something. So the whole thing is, what I was just saying about the analogy of like sleeping and causing imbalances just from breathing while you're asleep, since your nose is imbalanced, even though all day before that you were working out your body and getting it centered. Well, great, but it just, your body's always only ever now, one eternal round. An episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast title, right? We're only ever now. There's no tomorrow. There's no yesterday's workout helping you today. That's why you don't need to work out, because once you stop working out, you lose all the benefit, if you will, that you thought you were getting by working out. It's conditional, it's temporary, but the body isn't, as long as you're alive. I mean, it's just always only now, okay? So there you go. Workouts don't help the nose, by the way. You get a lot of people doing a lot of workouts, trying to get their body to work, and well, it gets discouraging is a big point. That's a big reason to talk about it like that, because yeah, I mean, you're just not going to within clothing that's not fitting how we discuss in our intros, right? When we talk about where clothing sits and our 2 prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company. It's no opinion. It's the angles and locations for the body's mechanics to just continue to be what they are. That's it. There's no other way you can do it while placing clothing on you. So there you go. Okay, I'm gonna leave it right there. Yeah, workouts don't help the jaw. Is the other video that's similar to this one. Workouts don't help the nose. Okay. Yeah. Well, eating and drinking with the left hand. A video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company here, right? You're breathing while you're chewing and imbalanced if it's only to one side, right? The dreaded collar seam alone will just do that, cause you to eat with your right hand only if it's placed on the left side of our collars, okay? Which it almost always is. So anyway, there's a lot that we do, as you can tell, if this is maybe your first In the Image Clothing Company video. I know a lot of our videos are very long, at least at this time, but because they're packed full of eternal truth that applies to every human being on the face of the earth forever, okay? No pride in that. It's just, yeah, it does. That's why we're here. So stick around for the Poodle Parade events. They'll be awesome. The state of Utah, the United States of America, is where we are based as In the Image Clothing Company. So yeah, thank you. Check out the other 3 sides of the company if you'd like to. In the Image Clothing Company podcast, we give a lot of beautiful insights on just what life is and how to navigate it. And check out our events, man. On the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, right, where this is and what this is, as far as like the anatomy of the human body, we'll have events as well where I will get together with people and discuss things like this. Allowing the body to work, showing the anatomy and just how to, right, in daily life. And free modifications in clothing. Okay, so if I didn't already mention that at the beginning, I just wanted to say that for sure, because a lot of what we do is personal stuff. Okay, we'll have our products and they'll be amazing, and we have our videos and they're filled with a lot of good information. And right, you can come at us in all the ways that you can, if you will, but also personally. Okay, events here in Utah, the United States of America. So stick around. Remember, if you ever come to any In the Image Clothing Company events, don't come for me. Come for either the Poodles, if they're Poodle Parades, or just for the information, right? Regardless of like main side of In the Image Clothing Company events or Poodle Parades as well, right? Just, yeah, don't come for me. Please leave me alone, right? As I have said so often under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, like, please leave me alone. But come hang out at the same time, right? So yeah, okay, thank you. Like I said, today's the 21st of June, 2025, and this is our video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company titled "Workouts Don't Help the Nose." Okay, I'm Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Stick around. Big things, big things, big things. We're still only getting started. I mean, really, through my whole life, it's probably just going to be only getting started what In the Image Clothing Company is. Yeah, because I mean, it's eternal truths, so it's always applicable. But as far as our company at all, right, we're only about 9.5, give or take, months into this. So stick around. Okay. Thank you.